Hey guys, it's Ashley and welcome back to Sparky Loves Books. If you have stayed through with me this whole time, thank you. If you're even still subscribed to me, I really appreciate it. I have been gone for a while, taking a bit of a semi-hiatus. I was going through a lot of personal stuff and there were just like a lot of events happening, so I took a break from social media, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, YouTube, to kind of just get myself sorted. And I'm feeling a lot better now, a lot more comfortable, so I'm going to start posting videos again more regularly, starting with today's video, which is my Gothtober wrap-up, or my October reading wrap-up. So in October, I read a total of 7 books, 6 of which were like gothic or creepy themed, and actually technically one of the books had 2 books in it, so I guess I technically read 7 gothic books and 8 books in total in October, and it was just a really great reading month. It was a lot of fun. I'm just going to get right into them. So the first book that I read in October was The Tales of the Peculiar by Ransom Riggs, and this is a collection of short stories that takes place in the Peculiar universe, which is where the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series takes place, and this is a lot like Tales of Beedle the Bard, except for Peculiar universe instead of Harry Potter universe. And so this book is technically written by Millard, who's one of the characters from Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. He's like the one who has collected this particular volume of the Tales of the Peculiar. First of all, this cover is absolutely gorgeous. It is just like, it's leather and it has this gold pattern to it, and there's like little hidden faces in the tree and stuff, and it comes with a bookmark, so that's really cool. And also everything inside is really beautiful. There's a couple of stories in here that are actually in the Peculiar trilogy. There's the one about the birds, a bunch of birds who flock to this cathedral that all the children, I think it's in the second book, end up going to, and Millard remembers this story about those birds and these peculiar birds, and that story's in here. The story of the first Imbrine is in here. Just a lot of things that are kind of connecting to the story that is in the original trilogy. If you don't remember it really specifically, you're not gonna quite remember that those stories are technically in the trilogy, but they are, and it's really cool. And this was just a great collection of stories. I enjoyed them all. I read them very fast. Some of them were kind of violent. The first one is about these cannibals. There's a couple of kind of violent ones besides that one too. My favorite story was the one of the first Imbrine. That was really cool just to see. That was so historical for the Peculiar universe. I just found it really fascinating, like knowing the origin story basically of this world that Ransom created. I also really liked The Girl Who Could Tame Nightmares. As scary and crazy as that was, it was really cool still. I thought that the girl from that was a really interesting character, very caring but very firm. Yeah, this whole thing was really great. I ended up giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I highly recommend it and the Peculiar Children trilogy. The next book I read in October was The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, and this is a slightly older novel written by Shirley Jackson, who's most famous for like her short stories like The Lottery. It is the story about this house that is really creepy and really isolated, and even the town that it's in is really creepy and isolated. It like tells the story of these 4 people who come together to this house. One of them is Dr. Montague, who is the one who is actually getting everybody together to study this house because he is interested in looking for evidence of like psychic supernatural things and ghosts, and so he goes to this house because he's heard stories of it, but he wants other people to be with him to study it and witness it and just inhabit it basically while he studies it. You have Eleanor, who most of the story is technically told through, who has never really done anything in her life. She's had kind of a hard life where her mom has died and was always really strict with her, and now her sister's taken her in, but her sister's really mean to her too. And so she's a really naive, frail person. So they're in this house, and a lot of the sort of really strange, creepy things start happening, and the house starts getting to them, basically. Even just driving up to the house is really creepy. It's really interesting. It didn't go where I expected it to go. It really is more about sort of creeping you out and getting inside your head, really. And you kind of find out that the way it creeps you out isn't quite how you thought it would creep you out. What is happening isn't quite what's happening. It's a little more convoluted than that, and Eleanor gets really shaken up more than anybody else by this house, and her perspective on the house really starts changing. Bloody dresses start showing up, and people start banging on their doors in the middle of the night. Because it's from Eleanor's perspective and she's really, really freaked out, like, that kind of imprints on you and you get more freaked out. So it was good. It wasn't quite as good as I was hoping it would be. I would still recommend it if you're into well-written psychological sort of thrillers, not something that is gory and horror. And it's really short, and it reads really fast too. It's not really dry. I would recommend it, but it wasn't my favorite. I gave it 3 stars out of 5. Next, I read the Anna Dressed in Blood duology by Kendari Blake. So this is Anna Dressed in Blood and Girl of Nightmares, again by Kendari Blake. These are about this guy named Cass who is a ghost hunter, and he kills ghosts that are violent ones that kill living humans. And he's been doing this ever since his father died years ago, and he's really good at it, but he ends up hearing this rumor about this really horrible, horrific house, and Anna is the one who is inhabiting that house and killing everyone. Basically, every time you go in this house, you die. And he gets thrown in the house kind of on accident, but Anna doesn't kill him. And so he keeps going back to the house because he's kind of gaining his confidence and wants to know why Anna didn't kill him. And there is a whole, like, mythology revolving around Anna. Why she didn't kill him, what her story is, what she's even doing in that house. And it is a lot more complicated than just like a ghost story. And then you go on to the second book, which I can't tell you about without you reading the first one, but it gets even deeper. Like, it goes into like levels of hell, and there's a lot to it, and just, you know, the curse that is sort of on Anna is really heartbreaking and sad, and her death itself, how she died, is sad, and her whole life story. So it was a lot more intense than I thought it was going to be. It wasn't, like, there are parts that are violent. Like I said, Anna's death is really violent. When she kills some people, it's really violent. But altogether, it's not a terribly violent story. This was pretty good. I was disappointed that there was such a heavy love story in it, honestly, because Cass and Anna sort of, like, fall in love, and it's a really bad insta-love situation, and that was disappointing. Like, I didn't want a love romance anything in my YA horror book. I just feel like it could have completely done without that. Anna and Cass could have been friends and it would have been fine. Other than that, though, it was pretty good. I gave both of these 3 out of 5 stars. It was really different. I'd never read anything like this. It's really like a young adult version of like Supernatural. I mean, even the main character's name is Cass and he's a ghost hunter. It felt really Supernatural. It was just a little bit of a letdown, but still really interesting and enjoyable, and if you don't mind having some romance in there, then I would definitely give this a try. Next, I read Soulless by Gail Carriger. This is the first novel of the Parasol Protectorate series, and I loved this book. This was so fun and so entertaining and such a hoot. Like, I don't know what took me so long to read this book. It has literally, like, everything. It has, like, sexy times. It has an awesome main lead character in Alexia who just, like, takes no bullshit and is awesome and has a clever remark for everything and is so smart and doesn't give a damn about like society and society's expectation. Lord Macone is amazing, and the whole thing is great. It has all these paranormal elements, and oh my god, it's so great. I really recommend everybody read this series because you will fly through it. It is so cute, so wonderful, and I just was like laughing out loud at so many parts of this book. So this tells the story of Alexia Terabati, who is what's called a soulless. She doesn't have a soul, and so she is able to touch supernatural creatures like vampires and werewolves and make them lose their abilities. And so she's called a preternatural, which is when you don't have a soul. And basically she accidentally kills this vampire who doesn't even know who she is, and every vampire knows who Alexia is, knows that she's a preternatural, and so she's wondering what the heck a vampire is doing in London, not knowing who she is. It takes place in Victorian London. It's really kind of steampunky, and if you like Clockwork Angel, or if you like Suki Stackhouse series, this is like a meshing of the two, so it's really cool. I would really recommend this. Alexia is a great main character. She is strong and she's a great heroine, and you will just enjoy the whole ride if you read this book. I ended up giving it, I think, 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read 2 Gothic novels. The first was The Castle of Otranto by Horace Walpole, and the second was Vathek by William Beckford. I really enjoyed The Castle of Otranto, didn't so much enjoy Vathek. The Castle of Otranto is about this family who lives in the Otranto Castle, and basically there has been this curse put upon them that the master of Otranto has always feared would come into play and actually be realized, and so he's lived his whole life like fearing this curse that he would eventually lose his castle. And his son is about to get married to this beautiful girl, and on the day of his wedding he dies a really horrible death. And so the master decides to try and marry the girl himself. Even though he's already happily married, he's like, oh no, I'm just gonna forget about my wife, she annoys me anyway. I'm gonna try and marry this girl on the day that my son died. And he basically like tries to force himself on her, and she runs away out of the room, and then he chases her through the house, the castle rather, and he's really a weird dude. He is just absolutely creepy. He's the worst. He's just like the worst guy. And so while he's chasing her through this castle, all of these weird things start happening with like the pictures moving and like these stone statues coming to life and stuff, trying to keep him from getting to the girl. And he is basically throughout this novel like losing his house. You know, the curse that he thought was going to happen is happening because of actions he took to try and not make it happen. So it was really interesting. It took a long time for things to happen, and a lot of the characters tended to ramble on and on about things that just like didn't matter, which was really frustrating because when they would talk to each other, they wouldn't say anything about who they were, so I never felt like I quite got to know the characters. It was okay. It was just, like I said, really lengthy and dry, so I ended up giving that one 3 out of 5 stars. The last one that I read was Vathek by William Beckford, which was just a letdown. I ended up not even finishing it because I was really bored by it. It felt like a more moral of the story, Paradise Lost. It's about this demon who is a slave down in the depths of hell, and he wants to become as all-powerful as possible, so he basically like runs into other demons and some humans up in like the world and tries to sort of use them to become as all-powerful as possible. It was very meh. It wasn't creepy at all, in my opinion. It wasn't that fun to read. It was just really dry and not a lot actually happened. It took a lot of time for anything to happen, and like I said, I ended up not even finishing that story, so a really big letdown. And the last book that I read in October was not Halloween themed at all. It was Under the Rose-Painted Skies by Louise Gournall. It is the story about this girl named Nora who is both OCD and agoraphobic, and her mom is off on a week-long business trip, which she didn't want to take. She couldn't avoid taking this business trip. Her mom is an amazing mother. This trip was unavoidable and she like begrudgingly goes on it, and all of these things happen while she's gone, and it really freaks Nora out, brings her out of her comfort zone. The next door neighbor has a party. Her grocery delivery service ends up leaving her groceries on her porch, so she has to go outside to get them. A lot of out of the comfort zone traumatizing things happen to Nora while her mom is gone. So that's where it starts. Eventually her mom comes home, and it, you know, talks about all the things that have happened and how it's changed Nora, including this romance with the next door neighbor boy, which was so unnecessary and so frustrating because it was so interesting to get into our main character's head and really see what's going on in her mind, why she has the thoughts that she has, like what goes through her head when she goes to try and hold someone's hand, why she can't, why she freaks out about things. So it was really cool to get in depth with her, and I really wanted more of that. I get that they brought in this romance that was really cute because she would banter back and forth with this guy really well, and that was great. Like the interactions were fine, but I don't understand why they couldn't have been friends and have had those interactions. It didn't need to be a romance. It just felt so unnecessary and unrealistic. It was really insta-lovey. I just didn't believe in it. I just was not falling for it, basically. So I was disappointed there wasn't less romance in it. I loved her mom. I thought her relationship with her mom is really well depicted, and her relationship with her therapist was a really wonderful relationship. I loved every time they had like a session together and would talk to each other. The ending was very emotional and very abrupt. While I did feel a lot at the end of the book, it just was so, they fit a lot into like 15 or 14 pages. Like, big things happen within that time frame, and I was like, like, I'm feeling a lot, but what is even happening? A weird choice, I think. So yeah, a star was knocked off for the romance, and then half a star for the abrupt but emotional ending. So I ended up rating this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. I did do a full review of it on Goodreads, which I will leave a link to in the description box below. And that's it. Those are all the books that I read for October. Let me know down below what you guys read, and if you like this video, please give it a like. And I will see you next time shortly, because I'm posting videos more often, with a new video. Happy reading!